Вы слушаете радио Озора.
Hey, good morning, evening, afternoon, everybody. We are here live from the studios of Radio Ozora. I'm sitting here with Pony. I'm Blaze.
Hello.
And on the other side of the Atlantic and the line is Gregor Reti. Hi, Gregor.
Hello there, everybody.
Hi. And if you are an Ozorian, then, and if you listen to our live check-ins from the site, then you might have heard me talking to Gregor before his lecture at Chambok House, which was titled Sex and Ego Death. Well, first of all, let's take it away from there. How was the lecture? Because after I met you, you were pretty ecstatic that it went really well. So tell us a little bit about the lecture and the feedback and this year's Ozora for you.
Yeah, so we had a really good time, and surprisingly it was well visited because it was Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. So after the last Saturday night big party time, I was expecting not so many people, but it was quite well visited. And it was possibly also a reason because I'm repeated. It's the third year that I'm holding lectures, and it's had a nice little buzz around it. So people came, and a lot of people spoke about they questioned about their personal experience, and it's, talking about love and sex. Of course, a lot of people were very curious.
What question stands out in your mind still? Do you remember?
I think what I realized lately, there is a buzz, or there's a growing interest in polyamory.
Yeah.
So people are questioning the monogamous culture of our society. It doesn't matter if it's the United States or Hungary or Russia or Japan, it's like across the bank, because we realize that monogamy itself is not as selfless as love should be. There's a big claim to possess or own the other person, and it creates an environment of codependency.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Pony, we were talking before the show that, what does it actually mean, the title of your lecture, and we would like to clarify.
Yeah, because we weren't sure if you mean sex as sexuality, or you mean as a person's own, identity.
Or the act itself. So sex and ego death. How do you mean ego death as part of, let's say, the act, or as about your sexuality? That was our question, first of all.
Yeah, basically it breaks down into two areas where sex is the act, the feeling, the circumstance where we can get ourselves in life. And then, of course, all the demons that swirl around it, because sex is a field where insecurities and self-doubts come out the strongest. So when I say ego death, it's actually an exaggeration. We will never be able to get rid of our ego, but we will be able to tame it, to minimize it or reduce it. And we can only do that with awareness. So actually, there's a really good quote from Henry Miller. It says, sex is one of the 9 reasons for reincarnation. The other 8 do not matter. So, sex is really important to everybody, and 98% of humanity, of adults, have sex life, have orgasms. Doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or if you play with yourself or whatever. So sex is omnipresent, it's always there in us. But in all the societies I know, nobody really speaks about it. There's no reference points. We are totally lost. We can look on the internet, we can watch porns, but that's just acting. It's almost like, Star Wars or whatever. It's a movie, but you cannot really relate to it. There's no way we can relate. And then we're in a relationship, and what happens in a relationship, very often we don't dare to speak about our sexual fantasies or wishes or trying out something new. We always feel like, oh my God, how will I come across? So we stay somewhat in a closet. And that's the majority. I mean, I have a lot of statistics in my workshops, and it's really surprising how much we are behind on that end. Because everything else, we are so developed. We have Tesla cars, we have iPhones, and everything you can imagine. But when it comes to sexuality, we are kind of a little bit in a stone age.
And is that the main reason why people tend to have, that you said the insecurities come out here the strongest, that it's not an open discussion? Is that the main reason?
Yes, exactly, because we always feel that we are weird, that we are strange. I mean, I was in the closet. I was transgender pretty much most of my life. I have to say, because I had a drug experience, an ayahuasca experience, which changed me quite radically, literally from one night to another. But even being transgender, I was in the closet. I was hiding. I was like always afraid and scared that people gonna perceive me as weird, as gay. Even though that the statistics, 54% of male to female transgenders, they're interested in women. So they're not even gay. It's a large majority. But still, I was like, until I went to Burning Man, my first time in Burning Man, and I was, dressed up as a woman and everything, and I felt suddenly so natural and so accepted. It was amazing. But the ayahuasca experience came like 2 years later, and that completely changed me back. So I'm kind of like, now I know both sides. But I know how much pain and insecurity it can bring if we stay behind and we cannot express ourselves.
There's often something said about sexuality that, there is no norm and everything is normal. Of course, there are some wild extremes like pedophilia, etc., which are, I think, any person with a feeling that a normal set of feelings would kind of reject, and rightly so. But other than that, there is this often said that everything is normal.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Absolutely. I mean, the problem with the word normal, it contains the word norm. A norm is like a dean. It's a norm. You set up, society sets up a norm, and whatever falls into it and what falls outside of it. But everything is healthy. And as you say, the only unhealthy sexual conduct is the one of no consent. You always need mutual consent. I mean, as long as you have mutual consent, pedophilia is not a consent.
No, because the kids do have no idea.
Yeah, and there are other sick situations. I mean, obviously, when people kill people or in sex or whatever, there's sick things. But at the same time, people hate pedophilian people. But I always say, can you imagine to be one of them? Can you just put your mind into it, how much you suffer? You have to live rightfully in the closet. You have to hold yourself all the way back. And I really believe that majority of pedophilia struck people, they don't even act on it. They have it in their fantasies and they manage to keep it under control. But some of them, I would say 10, 15% maybe, they act on it. And those are the real damage to society, because they ruin children's life. Those children, when they grow up, they're not going to have healthy relationship to sex, unfortunately. And that's, as we know, how do we feel about our sex life? Just imagine if somebody would have destroyed it. It's robbing somebody of precious energy. But anyway, let's not go so much into this very serious area. Let's go a little bit in the area. Like, yes, I give couples always the advice, communicate, have the courage to communicate, and take turns, like do role plays, or even watch together porn. There's lots of only the millennials, so now the youngest generation, they have a really good healthy statistics of watching porn together, and they are 80% more satisfied with their sex life than couples who don't watch porn together. It's a statistic by Huffington Post. I don't know if you know the media. It's out of the United States. So, the point is like we have to be creative because sex is a very creative field, and many times we don't realize it because we are so stuck in a social and religious conditioned society that we just ignore how creative sex can be. I mean, you can see it's a nice painting, it's creative, a statue is creative, somebody plays saxophone is creative, but the art of making love and playing, I mean, sex is like a play field, like two little kittens, like cats play around. That's how we should be. And that entails not the immediate pursuit of the orgasm. So unfortunately in our society is like very often it's like sex is like how fast can we reach the climax? And that's not even necessary. And that's the great thing about festival culture and people attending festivals where, have also some kind of drug experience. They know, when you're under the influence, you can play so much longer around and have so much more fun in sex than when you being a banker and you're in a 9-to-5 job and you're always under the clock and you're always sober when you make love. So the point is, we really need to find a ground of communication and find creativity and do it together. And it's amazing fun. And those relationships do really last significantly longer than the ones which do not communicate, which do not try out new things. Because as I always call if I name it in the workshops, it's like how many times can we do the same licky, sucky, fucky in the same bed, in the same position, possibly in the same time of the week. It just burns out. Everybody burns out. If you eat the same McDonald's burger after 2 months, you cannot see it anymore. But that's what we do with sex. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that in your lectures and festivals, do people respond more easily? Are they more open to ask questions to you?
Yes. And I mean, I do this for a long time, these workshops. And at the beginning, I spoke generally and brought up things from my book, which is the same title, Sex and Ego Death. And I realized people did not open up so easily. That's why I learned to pretty much open up my secrets. One of them is like, that I was transgender and how much I suffered under it. And, also sexual fantasies. We talk about sexual fantasies and I bring out the statistics, which is really mind blowing. There's a lot of misunderstanding about sex. One of them is surprisingly that men like older women more than younger women in their sexual fantasies, because Pornhub, the largest porn site in the world, has it like the first 5 search terms for men are always older women. They are not even schoolgirls or whatever. The myth, the stigma of man is, it's not even true. They're like in MILFs, mothers I like to fuck, and stepmom, and there's always kind of an older flair. And the other thing, again, according to Pornhub, which is very reliable numbers, because it's not people being asked, it's like it logs in per the computer you own, and they know who you are. I mean, at least male or female. And lesbian themes, for example, 280% more women watch lesbian-themed porns than men. I think it's like amazing, because most people think, oh, it's always a man who wants to see it. No, it's actually ladies. They enjoy it. They're curious and they're looking at it and they masturbate to it, and it's fine. We just should not see ourselves as sick or, by any kind of religious or social standards. We are very, as you said before, normal. We are normal. There is nothing outside of the norm. I mean, not nothing, it's exaggerated, but almost nothing.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. And let us have a little break. We are back at Radio Ozora with Gregor Reti. We're talking about sex and the death of ego. Hi, Gregor, can you hear us?
Okay.
Oh, I can hear.
Hey, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Of course.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sometimes
from the other side of the Atlantic, come on.
Yeah,
What
it's still amazing that we can.
Because you are right now in West Hollywood, right, Gregor?
Exactly, and I'm I did not have breakfast yet. I guess you guys had that already today.
Sorry, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
So, in the previous session, we talked about sexuality in general and your experiences, which actually makes me think a lot, because it's a really, really unique story. I don't know if there are many other stories like yours, but I certainly haven't heard anything like it before, because you told us that you were transgender. And really soon after you came out, you had an ayahuasca experience, which, as you said, snapped you right out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what I'm interested is, do you think if you hadn't came out already, would you had the same experience after the ayahuasca?
It's a good question.
Very good question.
I can only answer it intuitively, meaning I don't know logically, because nothing is logical in that realm.
Some things are.
But
not in our mind.
Ayahuasca, yeah, really. But so I think I would have, even if I would have not come out, I would have still been. I would have been changed, because I remember the moment I came back to my loft after being a whole night up with ayahuasca, and they gave me a mega dose. So the shaman gave me about 3 times as much as she gave to other people, and
Wow.
I was really shocked. I was a bit scared to take it. Actually, I wanted to dump half of it, but she always kept an eye on me and followed me with her eyes. And I said, "Oh my God, I cannot do it. I have to drink the whole thing." So I drank it, and next morning I came back to my loft, and I found my duffel bag. I just came back from Burning Man, and there was the nylons and the high heels and the corset and everything. I was like standing in front of it. I was shocked. It was like, I saw this, and I like, what do I have to do with that? What is that? Where did I get that whole energy from? It's an energy, obviously. Sexuality is a massive energy. And sometimes it's very hard to figure out where do we get the energy from. And so anyway, it was gone. It was gone. It was completely gone. I put all the stuff away, first for like 6 months or 8 months. It was just put away, and I gave it to somebody else. Like, I don't even want to see it. I don't want to be around it. And then it was, I became a man. It was really interesting because I never experienced how the sexual energy of a man is. How I would call it somewhat simple, kind of like a straightforward, kind of like, getting an erection and then find flesh, find a womb you can put your semen into. And it's kind of like a simple procreational kind of thing, energy. But I learned it. I had to learn it, and now it's really interesting because I know both sides.
And then you kind of had to come out again, didn't you?
Come out in what way?
As a non-transgender.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it's crazy, really. I mean, if I tell that to a scientist, they don't understand it. I mean, people who experienced ayahuasca, they have a better understanding of that. But it's really interesting because I really had female sexual, even my orgasm was very female. Because I went through hormonal treatment, I had little breasts, and when my breasts were starting to grow, I realized that my orgasms were more complicated, harder to come by, harder to build. But when they came, oh my God, it was a tsunami. It was I fell out of bed or whatever. It was very intense. And then after this ayahuasca experience, I continued immediately my hormonal treatment because I had no affinity with it anymore. And
you discontinued, you mean?
Yeah.
You said you continued.
No, discontinued.
Okay.
And
yeah.
And how did your family and friends react to this after? Did they understand, or were they skeptic?
No. No, I mean, family, I don't have much family. I have only one mother left, and she lives in Hungary, far away from me. So she has not seen me decked out when I was transgender, meaning decked out, like wearing women's clothes and makeup. And she never saw me like that. I mean, I told her that I am, but I think she just ignored it, or, like a conservative Christian, she just didn't want to hear it, I think.
And you talked about polyamory being quite a more and more accepted concept. But first of all, let's define polyamory and open relationship. Is it the same, or is there just like a large meeting point between the two? Because as I understand, polyamory is having a sexual and partly romantic relationship with more people at the same time. An open relationship, in my understanding, would be two people kind of living together, but letting the other to explore his or her sexuality with other people. So let's define first.
Actually, you're very right. You're right in both. In terms of definition, I would say the main difference between polyamory and open relationship is number one, complete openness, meaning complete honesty. You tell the other person everything, even what they don't ask. So let's say you have 2 or 3 lovers. All 3 lovers, of course, know of each other, which brings also an issue of scheduling. I mean, we know that timing is very difficult these days because we don't have enough time. So if you have 3 lovers, then you need three different times you need to see them, and you have to coordinate that with the others. And if they ask you about how was sex or whatever, you tell them everything. There's absolutely nothing you hold back. And the most important part is that you're supposed to, and that is what I don't fully understand myself. You're supposed to love everybody, like really fully love, like you being in love with all 3. For me, this is a difficult concept because I really can love one person a lot. When I'm in love, I'm totally in love. I even have difficulties when I'm in love to have sex with somebody else. I personally cannot do it. It could be still because I'm a bit female in my feelings, I don't know. But that's the other thing with open relationship is you are already tied up in a relationship. And as you said, you have the freedom to roam around and have sex with others. And I mean, how it should be is that both of them have this freedom. Even though a woman has it, of course, 100 times easier to find, somebody who wants to sleep with them. For a man, it's a lot of work, to get there. I mean, especially if it's, if they're not rich or they're not the best looking or whatever, then of course it's harder for a man to find a mating partner outside of their main partner. I also wanted to clarify, sorry, I just remembered the first part, we were talking about how the people in the audience at Ozora, very daring, very lovely, creative people, how they open up to the questions. So when they hear, when they can identify the things or that is very sensitive to them, but they hear that somebody else, for example, polyamory came up a lot in this year's workshop, and when they hear, there was like 2 ladies, they were like bisexual, and they lived polyamorous lifestyle, and they were talking about sometimes the difficulties of polyamory they were going through. And then immediately so many more people chimed in, and they were asking specific questions which related back to them, that they had aspirations, that they had tendencies to want to try out, they want to go into this field of polyamory. So it was really nice, and it creates like a group buzz, like a vibe of people like organically growing together in this and talking and yeah, it's beautiful.
Do you find that in different cultures people are more daring to try out things, or
Definitely.
where do you find
Definitely,
people?
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting because America, the United States, has such a big mouth image, but in reality, United States is the most insecure and the least daring, I would say, from the cultures I know, compared to Europe. I mean, I don't know Asia, I don't know Russia, but I lived in 4 different countries in Europe, and I have to say that pretty much every country is more daring and courageous. I guess that's the right word. Courageous to try out things in sex than Americans are. I mean, even though all the porns and all the big movies and the celebrities are here in Hollywood and what have you, it gives you the vibe that these people are wild, but they're actually not wild. They're very reserved.
You also talked at our interview during Ozora itself, when I interviewed you, that monogamy is a rather recent concept, and that in the tribal societies, let's say, it was more of a open field. What is your proof? My question number one. Question number two, but today we're not living in a tribe. Today it's all, you can get anyone in a second's time. How does that change that concept? Like in a tribe, it's more of an enclosed little group, and you can actually, so you understand the question, the second part?
Yes, I do. We will, yeah. So the first part is relatively easy to answer. Archaeologists, they have now amazing new technologies. I mean, unbelievable new technologies, which they didn't have before. They had only a little brush and a shovel and a piece of paper in the old days. Now they have like really high-tech, three-dimensional sonar machines and also DNA.
Yeah.
And with the DNA testing, they found this the oldest village in Anatolia, 10,000 years old, and there was a tribe living in a village already because we used to be nomads. And even in that village, the family structure in the room and how the people were buried underneath their rooms, they realized very quickly that these were not even families. They were like, the DNA was all over the place. So meaning people made love to each other, and the babies were considered the common babies. So it was when a woman gave birth, all the men were welcoming it as their own baby. So it was a very healthy structure, and it was very responsible structure, and it was brought out the best in people. It was a very multifaceted society they were born into. Everything changed as of when agriculture became famous. I mean, like took over humanity, and with that came the rights for land. So how can offsprings claim the land? So that means they had to create families. Who's going to inherit the land? And it's interesting that monogamy was born at the same time when agriculture became the main supplier of humanity.
So it kind of came with ownership.
With ownership, exactly. The ownership of the land also transferred into the ownership of the woman, and the woman's ownership of the man. So if we look at the whole clock of humanity, like 250,000 years, let's say, we are around only in the last 8,000 years, we have monogamy. The rest was not monogamy.
And the second part
in our DNA. That's in our DNA. So we are not really monogamous. We still have this urge of making love to other people, even if we are in a relationship.
But how does today's, society or situation where you have at your fingertips the whole world, anybody you can kind of get, how does that change? Because it could lead in some way to nihilism in a way.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the point is we are ultimately responsible for ourselves. It's like, how deep do we go into a relationship? I mean, getting an orgasm is relatively easy. I mean, it starts with masturbation, but you can also take those apps on your iPhone and like swipe left and right, and when the other person swipes also to the right, then you hook up, so to speak. But that's really nothing substantial. And yes, there is a danger of getting depressed, because if you never connect to somebody on a soul level, you only do it for your genital friction, so to speak. Then very quickly you burn out, and you lose your purpose in life. You kind of like start doubting, why am I around? What's this life supposed to be about? And you don't realize it's like your unconscious actions are creating an environment for your soul to die, or not to die, but to dwindle, to minimize. It's dangerous in a way. I mean, I see those apps as dangerous. I mean, I know a lot of my friends do it, so I cannot say anything bad about it. I mean, I never done it. I never been on those, and I cannot even imagine.
Okay.
How you feel good about yourself after that? Yeah.
Well, just give us some suggestions on just a few very short practical tips as a kind of a goodbye on how to keep the soul part in an open relationship. And let's just be short, and then we will maybe continue this another time.
Definitely.
Yeah, how you keep your soul alive in an open relationship. I mean, first of all, and this is the strongest part even of my book, is like we really need courage to be absolutely open and honest in our communication. So if you manage to get to that point, and it sounds much easier than it really is. I mean, I certainly had a lot of doubts and insecurities, and that held me back from being totally honest with the other person. So yes, we need to. It's actually, courage is the strongest supporter of your soul and of your happiness. And courage is like a muscle. As more you use it, as stronger it gets. And if you can keep that in mind and start off with little exercises in your existing relationship, how you put more honesty into that, and then like you can make a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, sit down and talk openly for an hour. And you can have a little bit, smoke something and a bottle of wine, and then you make sweet love after that. Because you will feel how when you minimize your secrets, as less secrets you have, as more vivid you become, as more playful, creative you become, as more horny you become, your sex life goes up. So I really encourage to train the courage, not to fear, not to be insecure. And I still have two things just quickly to say. The one thing is that I'm, as a Buddhist, I'm holding these lectures and workshops for free anywhere in the world. So if anybody needs, just contact me. And the other thing is the book is coming out now, and I'm looking also for it to be translated into as many languages as possible. Money is not an issue. I don't need money.
Where can we find more information online about your lectures?
There is Sex and Ego Death on Facebook. I have neglected it lately, but now that the book will be out, it's going to be a lot of postings going to go up there. It's called Sex and Ego Death. So facebook.com/Sex and Ego Death. And so I can do the lectures anywhere.
And GregorReti.com. Let's not forget.
Oh, yeah, GregorReti.com. Yeah.
All right.
Forgot that. Yeah, so wonderful. And all I can say, whoever goes through this experience, who heard that and finds inspiration to try it, and they feel it works, please talk to your friends about it. Don't be tight-lipped, and encourage other people to follow, because this is really what our humanity needs right now, is more honesty and more courage, to be honest.
All right.
Yes, I believe on just a very short personal note that there is less and less time to wait and dwindle, and I think we need radical courage, radical openness. And just as a personal little note, it works.
Wow.
It's and just that so much energy gets released when you do that courage, openness to your other partner and yourself. I can only just say it's quite a recent experience. So
actually, it's really interesting. Sorry that I interrupt, but there's a new study came out 2 years ago that 85% of your brain power goes away with keeping a secret in a relationship. It's amazing. 85% of your brain power is like you think so much ahead, how you should react, what can you say, what can you not say, and it's all in subconsciousness. So you feel really, really burdened. You wear yourself out, you burn out. So it's, as you just said, it's really good to be radically honest.
Oh my God, that's another topic I think we could continue for at least an hour. So if you're open,
if you are open,
we would love to have you back on the show and keep talking about the messages and the encouragement of people. And
Perfect.
thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're going to try to process now all this useful information while listening to Gravitation Novation from Galaxy Drop. And hopefully...
And talk to you again.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
anytime. Anytime.
Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll be back the same time next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central European time.